Hey everyone, and welcome to this episode of Your Questions Answered with me, James Church, the author of the best-selling book Investable Entrepreneur and the co-founder and COO at Robot Mascot. Now this week's question is a great question from Nick Seth, who asks, how much should I raise and how much equity should I give in return? So the first thing that I want to say and I want to highlight is that we should not be thinking about giving away equity. We should be thinking about selling equity. If we can, in our minds, just change that small thing from give to sell, it completely changes the narrative. It completely changes the way that we think about this transaction. Because make no mistake, this is a transaction between you and the investor, just like any other sales transaction. When you go to a shop and you go to buy something and purchase something from that shop, you exchange your cash, you exchange your money in return for something that you think is of equal or greater value. If you think it's of less value than the money that you're going to spend on it, you're not going to make that purchase. So it has to be of equal or greater value, and that's exactly the mindset that the investor has when they come to buy your shares. They are exchanging cash for something that they feel is of equal or greater value. So you have to make sure that you consider this as a sales transaction where you're selling your equity to an investor and you're giving something equally as in exchange. You're giving something of value, your shares, they're your most valuable commodity right now, and you are exchanging those in return for capital because you need that capital in order to grow your business. So it's a fair exchange between you and the investor. So we approach that with this in mind. We're going to get on much better in terms of how we approach an investment round. So to answer Nick's question, what I want to do is take you through the four kind of first major rounds of investment that a founder will go through and talk about how much money is typically raised, how much equity is sold in the transaction, what that makes the average valuation or the typical valuation of a company, and what you should be doing with that money in order to position yourself ready for the next round of investment. So we have to think of this as a fundraising journey. It's a journey of steps to get you from where you are now to where you want to be and that profitable exit. So in my book, I call it the fundraising journey and I talk about it at length, but I'm going to give you a summary here of the most vital components. So the first round of investment for most founders is the friends and family round. These are trusted people in your network who are investing in you more than your concept or your business acumen. They just want you to succeed. They love you, they trust you, they're some of your greatest friends and colleagues, and they really believe in you, and they're willing to put some capital behind this, a small amount of capital to keep you afloat in those very early stages so you can research and develop this business concept. So a friends and family round is typically anything up to around 50 grand. You would exchange about 5% equity on average, and that would make your company valuation anything from, say, around 200k to $1 million, depending on the exact terms of the deal. And what you're going to be doing with that money is researching, testing, validating the market. You might not even build anything at this stage. It might just be paying for a little bit of research, paying for some time to go and do some market surveys, some studies, go talk to industry leaders who can explain what it is in the industry that you need to do, and you can frame and start to pivot your business as required and start to really figure out what that prototype needs to be at the next stage of the fundraising journey. The next stage of the fundraising journey is the pre-seed round. So that's typically an investment of anything between 100k to 500k. Most typically it's between 100 to 200k in the UK, specifically because of a government scheme called SEIS, and that's a tax benefit for the investor that makes investing in early stage companies really attractive opportunity. So that's really stimulated the investment in the UK, which is why the UK is one of the global leaders, but certainly the leader in Europe by quite a margin, by about 3 times as much investment in the UK as any other of the countries in Europe, and it's because of that scheme largely. So that attracts sort of 100 to 200k investment. more broadly, a pre-seed round 100 to 500k. The average equity that's sold during this phase is around 15% equity, making your company valuation anything from 500k to 3 million. And you spend that 100 to 500k on building that first prototype, making sure that the mechanics work, making sure you can make the tech, make the product to do what you say you want it to do, what it needs to do based on your testing and research in the previous stage of the journey. So that's the pre-seed round. Once you've built your prototype and you've spent that pre-seed money, you move on to the seed round. And the seed round is anything from 500k to 2 million in investment. And again, just like the pre-seed round, the average is around a 15% equity stake, making your company valuation now 3 to 10 million. So in 3 rounds of investment, you've gone from a 200k to a 1 million valuation up to a 3 to 10 million valuation, because you've now got research behind you, you've got some validation, you've got some traction, you've built a prototype. So there's actual tangible value within that business, so it allows you to raise more for a similar amount of equity. So your valuation's increased, and 15% will buy you anything from 500k to 2 million in cash. And you would use that cash to get yourself market ready, to turn your prototype into a, as close to the full kind of end solution as possible, the market ready product, the first version of your product that you can comfortably launch to market and fulfill the needs of your audience. And that money is also going to pay for the launch, the launch marketing, the launch campaign, to start getting you those first few users. Once you've achieved that, once you've launched your product to market, you're in the market, you have some revenue coming in, you've successfully launched, you're then going to move on to your series rounds. Now I'm just going to talk about the Series A round for now, but these can go on a number of rounds. So I think it's SpaceX is on like a Series J, so they start to get numbered by letters, so Series A, Series B, Series C, and so on, with SpaceX now being on like a Series J. So they can keep going and keep going and keep going from this stage. But we're just interested in those earliest rounds. By the way, as a bit of a side note, most founders exit after 3 rounds of investment. So a pre-seed, seed, Series A, or a seed, Series A, Series B is fairly average. And then at that point, you're talking about acquisitions. You've got people coming in wanting to acquire you, bigger companies like Facebook or Google, or someone else will come in and acquire you. Or you hold your guns, you want to be a SpaceX, you want to be a Tesla, you want to be a Google, a Facebook, and you keep going, and you keep going round after round after round for a number of years. But the average is 3 rounds of investment. The Series A round then is anything from 2 to 10 million pounds of investment. You're selling 15 to 20% of the company, and that would give you a valuation of 10 to 20 million at that stage. And that cash is all about scaling up. It's all about beginning to scale. You might launch some new product lines, you might launch some new features, but the main thing is scaling the business, getting more users, and positioning yourself for your next round of investment or a potential exit. But really starting to take control of the market, getting all the customers that you possibly can for the lowest price you can, delivering exceptional value, getting incredible feedback, and keep building on your tech, making it better and better and better. And that's what the series rounds are for. So they're the 4 rounds of investment: the friends and family, the pre-seed, the seed, the Series A. Typically, you're looking at 15% for the pre-seed, seed, and Series A as the amount of equity you would sell. And obviously that is depends on your valuation as to how much you can afford to raise. And that could be 100 to 500k for the pre-seed, 500 to 2 million for the seed, and 2 to 10 million for the Series A. So hopefully that answers Nick's question. There's a couple of things I just want to talk about in terms of how you decide what the right deal is for the investor or for you. So by going through this approach that I just outlined, raising what I like to think of as little and often. So rather than going to market saying, I've got this great idea, I need £20 million to make it happen, and trying to raise 20 million all at once, you're much better off doing lots of smaller rounds of investment every 12 to 18 months, because you end up holding on to more equity in the long run. So with the examples that we've given, 15% as an average that you sell, after 3 rounds of investment, you're still the majority shareholder. You still own over 50% of the company and you have full control. If you start raising too much, you then too soon, then the amount of equity you need to sell to make that a fair deal becomes much higher, and you end up in a position where you own less than 50% of the company at the end of those 3 rounds, which may not be the most ideal situation for you to be in, but it is very common. And especially if you're looking at high growth and high scale, it wouldn't be unusual to own 10-15% of the company at the end of the journey, but you're talking 100, 200 or more £1 million company, so having a small slice of that large pie isn't so much of an issue. But there's 2 key points that you need to think about, and founders look at this often from quite a selfish perspective, and that's absolutely fine, and it's their right to do so. You want to retain as much equity as possible, and like I say, the way to do that is little and often in your raise. So what you really need to do is think about this from the investor's perspective, because it's an exchange. So they don't want to buy anything buy these shares if they're not of equal or greater value to the cash that they're putting in. Just like you wouldn't want to go to a tech store, buy a new phone that you didn't believe was of equal or greater value to the cash that you were going to pay for that phone. So it's exactly the same concept. So the first thing you need to do when setting how much you're going to raise and how much equity you're going to sell in return, and therefore your company valuation, is make sure that you're offering investors a fair offer. It needs to be fair, something that they feel is a good offer. So you might be best trying to raise less than you think than you want for the amount of equity, or more sell more equity than you are planning on selling as well. So if you can change your offer so that you're raising slightly less and you're selling slightly more equity than perhaps you had in your head, the chances are that's going to feel like a much fairer offer to the investor on the other side of the table. You're going to have much more beneficial conversations, and you're going to close that deal much easier and much quicker and much sooner. So the first thing, make sure that whatever you do is a fair offer. And the best way to think about getting to a fair offer is think about the investor's returns. They're only doing this, they're only investing in you because they think they'll get a return. So you have to look at this from the investor's perspective and say, what are the potential returns I could get in the long run if this business is able to hit all of its key milestones, if it performs and gets to where it says it's going to get to with its 5-year financial projections, what are the potential returns I could get? So this gets into the detail of understanding how to create your exit valuation and things like that. But if you can figure out what you think your exit valuation will be, then you can work out what the investor's return might be, and then you can propose a fair deal to the investor today based on what your future valuation will be if you were to hit all your key metrics, and discount it slightly, give them a slightly better offer than that even. And then you've got yourself a great offer for an investor. They can see the potential returns. They can see that you're not overvaluing your company and trying to get them to buy something today that is not of equal or greater value. And you're going to get on much better than 99% of the founders out there who are typically pitching too high. They increase and overinflate their valuation, and it takes them ages to close their round, and they have to start reducing the amount of money they raise. They have to start reducing their valuation in order to close a deal. So to cut through all of that, to make your time easier, just think about a fair offer, a fair deal for the investor. And if you can raise little and often, that will help you do that, and it will help you retain as much equity as possible during that process as well. So I hope that helps, Nick. I hope that helps everybody else, and that answers your question. And I look forward to doing another one of these videos soon. And if you've got any questions for me that you'd like me to answer in this series, then feel free to drop them in the comments below. Speak to you soon.